race fans, welcome to my little show about motorsports I like to call In the Pits with me, StockCar Scott. Here each Wednesday on the YouTube during racing season when I feel like it. This week, let's start with NASCAR K&N racing. Last Thursday, NBCSN showed a K&N East race from the weekend before at South Boston, Virginia, won by Jeff Burton's boy, Harrison, over David Gilliland's boy, Tide, on a late race restart. The next K&N race on NBCSN is tomorrow night at 10:30 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, where we will get to see that Gilliland boy own the competition at Spokane Super Oval, leading every lap of the Napa 150 to get his fourth straight K&N Pro West win. That race was run last Saturday night under miserable conditions that would have canceled a regular race night there at Spokane, but from what I understand, NASCAR was in charge. So even if some gamblers and some inmates had to lose a little sleep that evening, a race was going to be run. By the way, if the state ever needs to torture me, just incarcerate me next to a racetrack. Anyway, several Washington drivers represented well, with Garrett Archer of Black Diamond finishing best in fourth in his Dirt Fish Ford. Spokane native Nicole Bayer finished sixth in her number 33, while number 55 Owen Riddle of Natchez was eighth in a Ford, with Braden Havens, also from Spokane, also in a Ford, finishing ninth in the number 61, putting four Washington State drivers in the top 10. The next race for the K&N West guys is at Orange Show Speedway in San Bernardino, California. The next race for Spokane Super Oval is Saturday night with the Northwest Super Late Models and Northwest Mini Stocks. Then June 3rd, I hope to be there with the Better All Auto Sales Twisted Tea West Coast Late Model Series for their next event. Back to racing on TV. Friday, I recorded the F1 practice at Spain early in the morning to watch later while NASCAR was in a break. Fernando Alonso had a motor pouring out fluids, but McLaren had him back out Saturday for a really good day of qualifying. Maybe they stole a motor like in Days of Thunder. Anyway, the regulars were fastest there at F1 practice, the Ferraris and the Mercedes. After NASCAR practice, young Ryan Blaney earned his first Monster Energy Cup pole position of his career there at Kansas Speedway in the number 21 Wood Brothers Ford, for that team's first pole in a long time. After Cup qualifying, the Camping World trucks ran 250 miles, 167 laps at Kansas Speedway, with the Toad ruining yet another lower series race. He led most of the race in his number 51 Tundra, but for a shining moment, Ben Rhodes passed the Toad and led the race until his number 27 Toyota blowed up. Then Busch picked the lead back up and won the race. Johnny Sauter and John Hunter Nemechek were the best truck regulars, finishing second and third, both in Chevys. Sauter still leads the Truck Series driver standings going into their next race at Charlotte this coming Friday. Last Saturday morning, the recording of the F1 qualifying at Barcelona, Catalunya in Spain was great. Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel battled back and forth, qualified first and second on the front row as usual. Hamilton with yet another pole. But Spaniard Fernando Alonso performed a miracle with his underpowered McLaren Honda, putting it 7th on the grid for his home Grand Prix that would be on Sunday. It was really nice. There was also an IndyCar race on the road course inside of the Brickyard, which was won by Will Power. But I completely missed it. I don't even know what channel it was on. I think maybe ABC now, but because that's where their next race is, the Indy 500 at the end of the month. Saturday night was the Monster Energy Cup Go Bowling 400 with Ryan Blaney on the pole. So I set the video recorder and headed out to watch racing at Evergreen Speedway, because it looked like the weather might cooperate with the local racers. I drove through a sprinkle on the way up to Monroe, but the weather was fine for an evening of racing. But just to be sure the fans got to see the super late models, management made the smart move again and ran the 100-lap feature first after the heat races. It was quite the super late model race. Tyler Tanner was on the pole, with winner of both previous races at Evergreen, Pastor Jeff Knight, on the outside there of the front row of a field of 13 cars. And they went 98 laps. 98 of 100 laps passed under green, with Knight leading all of those laps in the number 70. But then a badly timed move in turn 2 by my friend Tyler Tanner, with a lap and a half to go, brought out the caution. Once the drivers got their cars back in order, then we were reminded of how cautions just bring out more cautions. A couple of restarts later, several torn up race cars later, a last restart set Knight, who had been able to survive all of that up front, up against 2016 Rookie of the Year, Trenton Moriarty, in his number 12, who was able to put pressure on the number 70 during the last lap, coming within a wheel well of victory. Oh, right there at the line. I mean, they were close, folks. It was good. So, for the third time this season, Pastor Jeff Knight took home the big trophy, and of course he gave all the credit to the hard work of his crew. The other divisions ran after the super late models, with Cody Hoops winning the Stinger 8s, Nat Barber victorious again in mini stocks, then Steve Woods won in the street stock 30-lap main. For the last race of the evening, Zach Larson won in the Outlaw Figure 8s, but that was probably as I was pulling out of the fairground parking lot headed home. But before I get too far away from Evergreen, I want to give a big shout out to a race fan and Evergreen street stock driver, at least at one time, Josh LaPlante. He happened to win a track trivia question, and when he went up to pick up his prize there at the press box, he took time to come over and to the platform where I stand doing the video at Evergreen and make introductions. Josh seems like a really, really good guy, a nice fella, and it was nice of him to stop by. I really appreciated it. So, I was still able to get home a little after 10. So I made the mistake of starting to watch the Monster Energy Cup Go Bowling 400 at Kansas that I had recorded. And then I watched the whole thing, and because I was up anyway, I watched the F1 Grand Prix of Spain live, which was great, but as usual, I get ahead of myself. But I do need to stop these racing marathons before they kill me in my advanced years. Yeah, I'll stop. I will stop. Until Memorial Day, when the annual Monaco Indy Charlotte Race Fest occurs in a couple of weeks. And to add to that, the Mark Galloway 150 at Evergreen Speedway the night before. So I plan to be exhausted. But I get way ahead of myself. That's Labor Day, Memorial Day weekend. Way ahead. The Go Bowling 400, on the other hand, was an interesting race. After all, it did keep me awake all morning. The Toad won the first stage, and Ryan Blaney won the second stage. But the overall winner at Kansas was my friend JJ's favorite driver, Martin Truex Jr. So the wrong junior won again this weekend. But I can't blame him. I mean, it was a good race, and track kind of owed Truex one. My junior, Dale Earnhardt Jr., ended the night a mediocre 20th place with a mediocre race. I mean, he just ran around in mid-pack. Oldest brother's favorite driver, Chase Elliott, did somewhat worse after a pit row incident damaged the number 24 Napa Chevy, relegating him to a 29th place finish. Local favorite and Hendricks teammate Enumclaw's Casey Kane finished 15th, but relatively speaking, my younger brother's favorite driver, Kevin Harvick, did the best again this week, finishing third in his Stewart-Haas Ford. But the big news from Kansas was the big crash involving the Joker, Danica Wreck Magnet, and Eric Almirola, who came out the worst with a spinal compression fracture in the T5 area, causing him a lot of pain. A replacement driver has not been named as I shoot this show, but everyone has suggestions. Of course, I think the best fit would be my wife's old favorite driver from Vancouver, Washington, Greg Biffle, who isn't busy right now driving for anyone, and he has driven Fords for his whole Cup career, so that would make him a good fit. But my personal pick would be my fellow Alabamian, Darrell Bubba Wallace Jr., who now drives a Roush Ford in the Xfinity Series. It would be great, a great way for Bubba to test the Monster Energy Cup waters and see if his talent can transfer to that series. Yeah, I can always train. But other drivers like Biffle, Casey Mears, and Regan Smith have been mentioned as more likely candidates to replace Almirola during his weeks of convalescence. I even heard that Cousin Carl actually turned down the King's invitation for Edwards to drive the iconic number 43. I guess Mr. Ed is really serious about this retirement thing. The next Monster Energy Cup event is Saturday at Charlotte for the All-Star race and the Open race, which is a hooligan-style race that gets a couple more drivers into the Monster Energy All-Star race on Saturday night, which this year will include rounds of elimination with slow cars being parked. It should be quite the circus. But hopefully I'll be watching a recording of it all, because I would like really like to go down to South Sound Speedway for their 100 lap super late model race, along with Legends, Baby Grands, and Super 4 late models. And it would give me a chance to enjoy some clear skies and mid-60s that's supposed to be happening that evening. And finally, it will be my wife and my first trip of the season to one of our favorite little racetracks here in this area. And, oh, y'all know what else I'm looking forward to there? Chili cheese fries, yeah. Now, I had my favorite racetrack treat this past weekend at Evergreen, but my first love of chili cheese fries comes from the concessions there at South Sound Speedway and their use of natural cut fries. Whew. But I do enjoy the variety of the Evergreen version. Ooh, making myself all hungry and everything. Right here in the middle of the show just thinking about it. But race food is an important part of the fan racing experience. Something that some tracks might have forgotten. Concessions need to be tasty and affordable. But I don't need to get all preachy. I'm sorry. So, after I got through with Martin Truex Jr.'s win at Kansas Speedway, it was time for the Grand Prix of Spain. So I made myself a sausage biscuit using a pan and an oven, not microwave style, even though I like those too. I popped open another Mountain Dew and sat down to watch one of the best Formula One races I think I've ever seen. This is why I keep talking about F1 in a show that's really supposed to be about stock car racing. But there is nothing like the pinnacle of motorsports. And folks, I love NASCAR, but sometimes I am just at awe over some of the stuff they do in Formula One. The Spanish Grand Prix had close side-by-side racing there. Well, I mean, close racing for the lead between Hamilton and Vettel there. And it was like the likes that the sport hadn't seen in a long time. I mean, I just get excited thinking about it again. It seems that the new formula there for Formula One works. And I just hope that the excitement lasts the whole season there. Hamilton won the race in a head-to-head battle with Vettel and pulls to within 6 points of the lead in the driver's standings, but because both Mercedes and Ferrari's second drivers, Bottas and Raikkonen, suffered DNFs that day, the manufacturer's battle continues to be pretty close. Now, Raikkonen was put out by a crash with Verstappen on the first lap. But then he went on to melt the hearts of race fans around the world when he invited a young race fan of his who had been shown visibly distraught after the crash there on the big screen, head to toe in his little outfit from Scuderia Ferrari. And he was invited to come down to the Ferrari garage and meet his hero and get one of Raikkonen's personal caps autographed and given to him. And then he got to watch Raikkonen's teammate Vettel finish on the podium alongside of the rest of the Ferrari team with all their cheering. It's got to be something that little boy will never ever forget. And it seems Kimi Raikkonen is the Iceman no longer. I tell you now, if I get to go see Dale Jr. race this year and he wrecks on the first lap, I'm going to find me a cameraman and start crying my eyes out. Maybe it'll work. Oh, and the next Formula One event, as I said, is on the streets of Monte Carlo as they race past the casino at Monte Carlo during the racing marathon that is coming at the end of the month. Whew! Well, that's about it for this week. Kale from Victoria, BC got back to me explaining that they have had rain over the past few weeks there at Western Speedway, but last Saturday night they got back to racing with mini figure eights won by Cale Beck, claimers won by Nolan Perry. I wonder if he got to keep his car. Also, Dylan Ross won in the Bombers, and Cody Young was victorious in the hit to pass demos. Next, Western Speedway hosts sprint cars, stock cars, mini stocks, and the Old Timers Racing Association. This Saturday, as always, weather permitting. There's other racing in the area this weekend, and it goes as follows. Evergreen is having big rig racing along with two types of figure eights, Hornets and Youth Hornets. Spokane Super Oval is hosting the Northwest Late Model Series for 125 laps along with the Royal Purple Northwest Mini Stock Tour. South Sound Speedway, like I said, is where I will be watching Super Late Models, Legends, Super 4s, and Baby Grands. No, folks, they don't race pianos. That would be interesting. Yakima is closed for the weekend, and I couldn't get information on what might be happening at Post Falls State Line, but I don't think much because of the Northwest Super Late Models at Spokane. And I didn't see what was happening at Hermiston Raceway either, but they have big plans in the future, folks. So there you go. The weather looks really cooperative for the racing. For racing, going to watch some racing this week. Even the weather in Charlotte, North Carolina looks good, so I won't have to come home from South Sound Speedway to find that only 3/4 of the All-Star race was captured. Oh, that'll be nice. But now I'm serious, folks. I know the weather has kept many fans from getting out to the races so far this season up here in the Northwest. You know, because I have seen some fairly empty grandstands, and I will tell you, folks, they ain't nothing grand about an empty grandstand. So get yourself and a bunch of your friends and family and go see some racing this weekend. You never know. It could become a shared memory you can relive with your loved ones for many years to come. And if your memory stinks, like mine does, maybe I was at that track recording, and then you can relive the moment at youtube.com on my channel called StockCar Scott, oddly enough, where I post racing videos I have recorded all over the great Northwest. It is also where you can go to subscribe to my channel so you can get access to my videos seconds, sometimes minutes before folks on Facebook, where I share this show and videos each week. And I share this show, comes on Wednesday nights. So, that's it for this week. And you know what I want you to do this weekend. Yep, go out and see some racing in the beautiful weather that we are supposed to have. Then join me back here on the YouTube next Wednesday, same Stock Car time, same Stock Car channel, for a roundup of Northwest racing results on my little show about motorsports I like to call In the Pits with me, StockCar Scott. Thank you very much for watching. Now, go see some racing. Go see some racing this weekend. Go.